Hello, thanks for tuning in. So I was watching a clip on Peterson recently. He was asked, who is God? What is God? And Peterson waxed lyrical the way he always does, so eloquently, and adds a lot of context and a lot of weight, a lot of gravity to the picture of what God might be. But he rounds it up as, God is that within us which orientates itself to the highest ideal, the highest sacred ideal, transcendental ideal. And that's a nice perspective. There's something about all of us that wants to at least orientate towards the good. I mean, criminals and psychopaths, they don't even want to be caught because they know there's a field of goodness, and when they attach themselves to it, they undermine it by their deeds, their dirty deeds and so on, so they hide from it because something is good about us. We all feel that, or else what the fuck? We all feel that our species is a good species, that there's something sacred about it, and there's something sacred in the idea that through the empathic window that we all try to hold sacred by each other, that we all we want to hold each other up. Nobody wants children to be hungry. Nobody wants children to have bombs dropped on them. Okay, nobody with a clear heart wants to exploit children. Okay, so that there's sacredness in that sentiment. They're sacred. If you check out the landscape of what's being said here, okay, I'm painting pictures with words, but I'm creating a landscape, a salient landscape that you can attach yourself to. Okay, this idea that we orientate towards the good, and how high up does that good go? How high up does it go? Peterson often talks about he creates a polarized opposition. He always talks, well, how far down into the negative does our mind go? Well, we can imagine the worst kind of genocide and the worst kind of torture and the worst kind of mutilation and the sickest sense of our species. We can imagine that, to set that up as one premise, one side of the argument. And we don't want to orientate towards that. Even as I'm speaking it, some of you will find it hard to listen to. Nobody wants to think about genocide and torture in the cruelest manner possible of children, of families, and so on, because it makes us feel a bit sick inside. It knocks us out of kilter because we are not orientated in that fashion. We don't orientate towards that. But what's the complete polarized opposite of that perspective? Is it sort of halfway up the ladder that we start to recognize each other? Okay, that we start to recognize each other in relation to, we don't want that, we don't want that. So what else don't we want? What else is it that we don't want? We don't even want bad manners. We don't want vulgarity. We don't want arrogance. We don't want ignorance. Okay, so we orientate towards something where enlightenment seems to be in us, in a more wholesome way, given the context of perspective. So Peterson brings us up the ladder. So, that's one state of rising up, orientating towards something better. The idea of morality, the idea of honour and dignity, the idea that we would all hold sacred by one another is certainly better. It's a big step up on fucking wanting to kill each other and torture each other like fucking primitive little dirty chimps and so on. No matter how big your sword and fucking hat is, primitive dirty chimps. We want to orientate away from that. But does it stop at holding sovereign by one another? Okay, in the fullest sense, where does our sense of orientation end? Okay, we seem to rise up, and we seem to be able to rise up out of ego. We can abstract ourselves from ego. That's a phenomenal, that's phenomenal agency in the human mind that we can extract from ourselves. We can extract from the ecology we are swimming in. We can abstract back and abstract ourselves out of ego. Okay, so we're orientated towards that because there's something transcendental about that, and there's something collective about that in the spiritual sense, because there's no walls in the context, in the landscape, okay, when it's presented that way, when we think about each other, when we rise up, when we transcend and we connect to all the people of the world, all the animals, all the everything, as one big phenomenal network, one big network attached to one phenomenal legacy of development and evolution and so on, trying to understand itself, trying to overcome. We are orientating towards something, okay? But that's where it stops. And that's where it stops for Peterson's too, okay? Because that's not isolating God. That's isolating a phenomenal perspective about something in us that wants to become. But it still doesn't isolate God. It alludes to something in us that wants to become. The question is, what is it, this thing within us that wants to become? It's the thing that it can abstract. What is the thing that it can abstract out of ego? What is that without ego? That's the question. That's the real question. So this is where God begins for me, this thing that can abstract out of ego. Okay, so this is to show you an objective perspective, an objective mirror you can look in and subjectivize yourself to, so you can see God within yourself, this thing that abstracts and disengages from ego. Okay, what is this thing that can abstract the entire framework that is ego, that is body, out of the spectrum of thought? okay, and hold good with it. What is that? This is in the pond of phenomenology now, okay? We're getting into the core, right down, when you pull yourself back, when you pull back your ego, when you disengage from it, when you go right down into the core of spirit and what spirit is, you're a systemic engine that can abstract, okay? This is me objectively building up God for you. And this thing thinks through a set of modes I've spoken about many times, all these a priori modes that allow us to engage with reality and systemize it. And it can engage through the ego and through the sensorial channels and systemize its positions. Or it can disengage, abstract, and move back from ego and analyze itself through the window of that perception. This is God. This is God that can think and talk in this manner. This is systemic. Okay, so my view of God is objective and it's tautologically, sound. Okay, you'd have to use my system to debunk it. You just get tied up in fucking knots. This cannot be debunked. There is something systemic within all of us that can detach from ego in an abstract way, in an abstract conceptual equation. Okay, and hold good by itself in a different mirror, as a system, as a pure system, and it's in all. It's the same measure, the same hand, the same compass in all. The systemic eye trying to rise up, trying to overcome, trying to rise up into its own tautological framework. Okay, that's God for me. And that's moved on the picture. This is the thing that is orientating. Yes, we are being orientated towards something good. That's Peterson, and he set it up in a brilliant way. Okay. But this is the thing that's orientating. This is the thing within us. This is an objective perspective of something that's subjective in all of us. Okay, and it's tautologically wrapped up in all of us. You can't talk yourself out of it. You have to talk yourself into it because it's axiomated within. You see? I mean, who the fuck talks like that? Okay, this is our species waking up. There are many of us thinking and talking like this now. This is our species climbing up. We're at the interface of a new day. We're trying to leave an old paradigm behind, and we're caught up in that which is needed and that which is not. Okay, and it's hard to swim forward, but we're moving forward, our species. So anyway, I say that's the best version of God on the table. Okay, a brag to brag, but God is a big fucking brag if you're going to brag it up, and many people have bragged it up, and Peterson has bragged it up, and as far as I can see on the table on this day, he is bragging it up biggest. But this is a bigger perspective again. It really is. This is me showing you the potential of what a God might be in all of us. And it is in all of us, as I said, this systemic eye that can abstract itself from ego, that it can extract itself from ecology and hold, in accord with its own self as a constellation of pure modes, implied in play when God goes about thinking about itself. Something like that. Anyway, happy to take questions. And thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends to subscribe. We need intelligent debate. We need intelligent debate. We need new warriors to come back to the table and shake it all up, or else we're fucked. So please subscribe, please share. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving me your brain time. Peace and love and logic and a beautiful species. We are indeed.